Y'all willing, I could spend more time, y'all willing, getting the presentation for lectures. So I pray you all who are used to some of our more elaborate and explanative videos based on the charts and the diagrams. But let's get into this right now. The so-called black Jews, and many of my Hebrew Israelite brothers of today, unfortunately, they've been misinformed about certain matters, even though they do have certain matters correct. Now, many of y'all so-called black Jews or black Hebrews today have been misinformed. You have been misled by many of the so-called scholars, Hebrew Israelite scholars, and many of them are wolves in sheep clothing. They study the scriptures, mainly the Bible, and then they try to interpret them, but what they actually do by not understanding the history, you understand, especially the prophecy concerning Ethiopia, they misinterpret them. Now, by doing this, they misinterpret the meanings within the Qidus, within the Orit or the Torah, thus leading entire congregations of Hebrew Israelites and black Jews astray and away from the way. Now, these so-called scholars and others, they write many books now, publishing videos and on the subjects, you know, such as who are the Hebrew Israelites, who are the black Hebrew Israelites, where the white man came from, so forth and so on, who's the real black man, and what the African is or is not, what the Ethiopians are and are not. And they dabble a little bit on scriptures and Bible quotes, and mix in oftentimes their own unregenerated opinions. And by doing this, they continually confuse our people. They continue to confuse my people. Now, why? Because they really don't know what they're doing. They don't have the ability correctly to decipher the pure Qidus, the holy scriptures. They can't see the meaning in them, the true meaning, the overstanding, and they have a poor understanding of them. This is why I, Rasiadonis Tafari, have been sent to clear up these half-truths, outright lies, and utter confusion. Now, if you've been checking out our videos and some of the teachings, you will see a difference. There's a clear difference between us and them. When we touch on subject matters, and there are many that we do touch on, you can check our website and webpage and look for some of the upcoming seminars. We take you directly to the Qidus, to the Holy Scriptures, and we seek to show you how they all link together, as well as provide you with the history, the accurate history, with charts, with diagrams, with times, with dates and locations. Our doctrine, the good news of His Imperial Majesty in and according to the Moshe, the Christ, is unique. No one out there can stand against our teachings, the teachings of the King of Kings and His Christ. Now, as for the descendancy of the so-called white man or European or so-called white Jew, you understand, who we know as the Canaanian or the Canaanite, is just one of the many subjects that we have expounded and taught on. Never once was the word Canaan used by many of these Hebrew Israelites to describe the so-called white man until this present time. Your leaders, many of them, they've been associating the Edomite, in other words, the white man's identity is the Edomite, the Edomite, the Edomite. So when we say the Edomite or Esau is always the white man, yeah, that's just half the story. You know what I'm saying? That's just half the story. What we want now is the other half of the story that has not been told. However, after this, when we break it down to you, explain it to you, many of your so-called leaders, they're either going to have to upgrade, you understand, their Hebrew Israelite game, or it's going to be very clear that the game that they're playing, you don't want to play. Now, let's give a quote from Yahweh ben Yahweh. Yahweh ben Yahweh, according to excerpt from Nations of the Middle East on page 106. Yahweh ben Yahweh says this. Yahweh ben Yahweh says, we, and may the true God and Father of our Moshiach Yahushua, have mercy on Yahweh ben Yahweh and on his soul, since he has passed away at this time. But he said this on page 106 of Nations of the Middle East. He says, we, the children of Israel, could not stand before our enemies. According to Joshua 7:9 says, for the Canaanites, which truly are the Eurocentric Gentile white race, and all the inhabitants of the land shall hear of it, and shall environ us round, and cut off our name, the true name of the true Beta Israel, we so-called American Falashas and West Indian Falash and Rastafari Falashas. They will cut off our name as Beta Israel from the earth. And what will thou do to thy great name? This is what Yehoshua of the Belui Kidan, the Old Testament, Joshua, said in the book of Joshua, chapter 7, verse 9. Now what's interesting is that many of the Hebrew Israelites, many of the so-called black Jews, have never really heard this word used in the context concerning the so-called white man, the pale man. You understand? Until Yahweh ben Yahweh, Dr. York, and others basically brought the truth forward. But we still have work. There's still work to do, because many of the black Jews, the so-called Hebrew Israelites, they say that the pale man, so-called white man, is from the Edomite and is really Esau. You understand? Others say other things concerning what the white man's true origin. None of these groups really know the truth, and they're not teaching the people the truth. All they're teaching the people is half-truths. However, the only difference is that even when they do say the Kenawiyan, they don't make the full understanding, the full connection of who's who in the Bible, or explain to you the hows, the wheres, and the whys. Why is this true? Why? Why don't they do this? Because they cannot, because they have not been born again in spirit and truth, and not regenerated. Therefore, when they dabble in the scriptures, they must mix in their own opinion and can't stick to the truth and explain it to you historically, because they deny, they're afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia, our expectation. We'll pick up on more of this in the next part of this series. Give thanks for listening.